The recycled air of the cabin dried my throat as I shifted uncomfortably in my economy seat. My neck ached from the awkward angle, and the thin airline blanket did little to ward off the chill. Flight 2187 to Rome, a desperate escape on my maxed-out credit card, a one-way ticket to anywhere that wasn't Boston, wasn't the shambles of my life. More water, miss? The flight attendant's voice barely registered as I nodded, accepting the plastic cup with trembling fingers. 3 days without proper sleep had left my thoughts fragmented, my body running on the last dregs of adrenaline. The bruise on my wrist had faded to a sickly yellow, but the memory of Martin's fingers digging into my skin remained fresh. The memory of what I'd done to escape him even fresher. It's just temporary, I whispered to myself, a mantra I'd repeated since fleeing my apartment with nothing but a hastily packed suitcase and the envelope of cash I'd been saving for a security deposit on a new place. A new life. Now, it was funding my escape. I wasn't running away, I told myself. I was running toward something. I just hadn't figured out what yet. The sleeping pill I'd taken 20 minutes ago began to blur the edges of my consciousness. My eyelids grew heavier with each passing second, the murmur of conversations around me fading into white noise. For the first time in days, I surrendered to exhaustion. The gentle pressure of fingers against my cheek jolted me awake. Miss Lawson, Sophia Lawson. The voice was deep, accented. Italian, I thought hazily, and entirely unfamiliar. I blinked, disoriented, my mouth cotton dry. Something was wrong. The cabin lights had dimmed, and the plane hummed with the silence of sleeping passengers, but I wasn't in my economy seat anymore. Soft leather cradled my body. A cashmere blanket, not the paper-thin airline variety, lay draped across my legs. The air smelled different here, hints of expensive cologne, leather, and something citrusy. You're awake. Not a question, but a statement, delivered in that same rich accent. My vision finally focused on the source of the voice. He sat opposite me in what I now realized was a private cabin, first class or something even beyond that. The man couldn't have been older than 35, with sharp features that seemed carved from marble. Dark hair swept back from a forehead unmarred by worry lines. His suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. But it was his eyes that froze me in place. Dark, nearly black in the dim lighting, they studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle, not just looking, but cataloging, assessing, claiming. Who? My voice cracked, and I swallowed hard. Who are you? Why am I here? The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been amusement, but his eyes remained cold, calculating. You don't recognize me? Again, not truly a question. He leaned forward slightly, and I instinctively pressed myself deeper into the seat. No, you wouldn't. But I know you, Sophia. My heartbeat stuttered. I hadn't given my name to anyone on this flight. How do you know my name? I managed, eyes darting to the call button. Could I reach it before he stopped me? Were there flight attendants who would help me if I screamed? As if reading my thoughts, he said, We're alone in this section. My men have ensured our privacy. His men. The words sent ice through my veins. I asked you a question, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Who are you? He studied me for a long moment, then inclined his head slightly, a gesture that somehow managed to be both gracious and threatening. Dante Ricci. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, as if I should tremble at the sound, told me everything I needed to know. You've taken the wrong person, I said, hands gripping the armrests. I don't know you. I don't have money or connections or whatever it is you want. A flash of something dangerous crossed his face. I never make mistakes, Sophia. Especially not about things that belong to me. The possessiveness in his tone made my stomach clench. I don't belong to anyone. His laugh was soft, almost gentle, but entirely without humor. That's where you're wrong. He checked the platinum watch on his wrist. We'll be landing in 20 minutes at my private airfield outside Rome. Private airfield. The reality of my situation began to crystallize. Sharp-edged and terrifying. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a kidnapping. I lurched toward the cabin door, but he moved with startling speed. catching my wrist in a grip that was firm but not painful. Not yet. "Sit down, Sophia. Let me go or I'll scream," I threatened, pulling against his hold. His other hand produced a small black device, which he placed on the table between us. "The cabin is soundproofed, but if you insist on making noise—" He pressed a button, and the device emitted a soft hum. Now no one can hear anything, not that they would intervene. Fear clawed at my throat. "What do you want from me?" Dante released my wrist, but remained standing between me and the door. "It's quite simple. You're going to be my wife." The world seemed to tilt beneath me. I grabbed the edge of the table for support. "You're... what?" "My wife." He said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "The ceremony has already been arranged for tomorrow evening." "You're insane," I whispered, the words escaping before I could stop them. "I don't know you. I won't marry you." Something darkened in his expression, and I immediately regretted my words. He moved closer, not touching me but invading my space until his cologne, expensive, subtle, masculine, filled my lungs with each panicked breath. "Let me be clear, Sophia. This isn't a proposal. This is what will happen." His voice remained calm, conversational almost. "Your passport has already been processed with my family name. Your new identity papers await you at my estate. As far as the world is concerned, you've been my fiancé for months." My mind raced frantically for an explanation. Any explanation that made sense of this nightmare. "Why me? You could have anyone." His expression softened slightly, and he lifted a hand to brush a strand of hair from my face. I flinched at the contact, but he seemed untroubled by my reaction. "Because you're perfect," he said, eyes roaming my face with disturbing intensity. "And because you need me. I don't need—" "You're running from something," he interrupted. "Or someone. Martin Caldwell, perhaps." The name struck me like a physical blow. "How do you know about Martin?" Dante smiled, a predator's smile. "I make it my business to know everything about what's mine. The bruises he left, the money he took, the threats he made." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Men like that should be taught lessons in respect. A chill ran through me at the implied violence in his tone. "You've been watching me, protecting you," he corrected, "for longer than you realize." The plane began its descent, the subtle shift in pressure making my ears pop. Reality crashed over me in waves. This wasn't a dream or a misunderstanding. This was happening. "I won't marry you," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "You can't force me." Dante reclaimed his seat across from me, entirely at ease. "I have no intention of forcing you, Sophia. You'll choose this. Perhaps not today, but soon." "Never," I spat. He merely smiled, as if my defiance amused him. "You have nothing to return to. No job after your gallery closed. No apartment after Martin gambled away your rent money. No family since your mother passed." He listed the ruins of my life with clinical precision. "What I offer is protection, security, a new life." "As your prisoner," I said bitterly. "As my wife," he corrected, "with all the privileges and responsibilities that entails." The plane touched down with barely a jolt, a smooth landing on what must have been a private runway. Through the window I could see nothing but darkness punctuated by the glow of runway lights. No terminal, no other aircraft. Just emptiness stretching into the night. "We've arrived," Dante said unnecessarily. He stood and buttoned his suit jacket with practiced ease. "My car is waiting. And if I refuse to leave this plane—" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then my men will carry you. I'd prefer to avoid that indignity for both our sakes." The cabin door opened, and a broad-shouldered man in a black suit appeared, his expression impassive as he inclined his head toward Dante. "Everything is prepared, boss," he said in Italian, his eyes flickering briefly to me before returning to Dante. "Grazie, Antonio." Dante extended his hand to me. "Sophia, your choice. Walk beside me or be carried. Either way, you're coming home. Home." The word twisted in my chest, a mockery of everything I'd lost. I stared at his outstretched hand, then at the open door, calculating my chances. If I ran, how far would I get? If I screamed, who would hear? The answer was clear. Nowhere and no one. With a shaky breath, I rose from my seat, ignoring his offered hand. "I'll walk." Something like approval flashed in his dark eyes. Wise decision. I preceded him through the door, hyper-aware of his presence behind me. The air outside was cool, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of pine and earth. Nothing like the Boston spring I'd left behind. A sleek black Maserati waited on the tarmac, its engine purring softly. Another suited man held the rear door open, his gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder. "Your new life begins now, Sophia," Dante murmured close to my ear, his hand coming to rest at the small of my back. Not gripping, not forcing, but present. Inescapable. "I promise you won't regret it." As I slid into the leather interior of the car, my heart hammering against my ribs, I already knew that was a lie. The door closed behind us with a soft, final click. I had escaped one cage only to find myself in another, one gilded with wealth and power, but a cage nonetheless. And as Dante settled beside me, his thigh brushing mine in the confines of the back seat, I realized with sickening clarity that this man, this stranger who had declared me his wife, might be far more dangerous than anything I'd left behind. The car pulled away, carrying me into darkness, toward a future I hadn't chosen but couldn't escape. Not tonight, at least. But tomorrow. Tomorrow I would find a way out. I had to. The journey from the airfield to Dante's estate passed in tense silence. I pressed myself against the car door, creating as much distance as possible between us in the confined space. The Italian countryside rushed by in a blur of shadows, occasional lights from distant farmhouses the only indication we weren't completely isolated. "You should rest," Dante said, after nearly 20 minutes of silence. "It's been a long flight." I kept my eyes fixed on the window. "I'm not tired." A lie. Exhaustion weighed on me like a physical burden, but fear kept me alert, my body humming with adrenaline. I wouldn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. Not with him beside me. Not when I needed to memorize every turn, every landmark we passed. "Your body disagrees," he observed. "The circles under your eyes tell a different story." I turned to glare at him, finding his gaze already on me, studying with that same unsettling intensity. "Stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" There was genuine curiosity in his voice. "Like I'm a possession. Something you've acquired." His lips curved slightly. "Not acquired, Sophia. Reclaimed." The word sent a chill through me. "I was never yours to begin with." Instead of answering, he reached into an interior compartment and withdrew a small silver flask. "Water," he explained, offering it to me. "You're dehydrated from the flight." I hesitated, suspicion flaring. "How do I know it's just water?" Something dangerous flickered in his expression. "I don't need to drug women to have them in my bed, Sophia." His voice had dropped lower, a rough edge to his words that made my skin prickle. "When that happens between us, you'll be fully conscious. I want you to remember every moment." Heat rushed to my face despite my fear. "That will never happen." Dante merely smiled and returned the flask to its compartment. "We'll see." The car turned onto a long, winding road that climbed gradually upward. Ancient cypress trees lined the drive, their silhouettes black against the night sky. As we crested a hill, the estate came into view, and I couldn't suppress a small gasp. It wasn't just a house. It was a fortress. A massive stone villa sprawled across the hilltop, lights glowing from dozens of windows. The architecture spoke of centuries past. Renaissance, perhaps, but the security features were thoroughly modern. I spotted cameras mounted discreetly among the ornate stonework, and what looked like motion sensors placed strategically throughout the grounds. "Welcome to Villa Ricci," Dante said, watching my reaction. "My family has owned this land for 8 generations." The car rolled to a stop in a circular driveway before massive wooden doors. Before the driver could exit, the doors swung open, and a middle-aged woman emerged, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun. "That's Elisabetta," Dante explained as the driver opened my door. "She's run the household since I was a boy. She'll see to your needs." "My need is to go home," I muttered, but stepped out of the car anyway. The night air was cool against my face, carrying the scent of jasmine and something earthy. Somewhere in the darkness, water flowed, a fountain or perhaps a stream. Elisabetta approached, her keen eyes assessing me from head to toe before she offered a small, formal bow. "Signora," she greeted me, her accent thicker than Dante's. "We have prepared your rooms. You must be tired after your journey." Before I could correct her presumptuous use of signora, Dante's hand settled at the small of my back again, guiding me forward. "Show Sophia to the East Wing suite," he instructed Elisabetta, "and have Lucia bring up a light meal." "Of course, Signor Ricci." My legs felt leaden as I climbed the stone steps to the entrance, Dante's presence a constant pressure behind me. The foyer we entered was cavernous, with a vaulted ceiling adorned with frescoes that, even in my distressed state, I recognized as masterful. A sweeping marble staircase dominated the space, flanked by sculptures that belonged in a museum. "Your home is impressive," I said, the words inadequate for the grandeur surrounding us. "Our home," Dante corrected smoothly. "You'll have time to explore tomorrow. Tonight you need rest." I wanted to argue, to demand answers, explanations, a way out, but fatigue was beginning to win the battle against adrenaline. My vision blurred slightly at the edges, my thoughts becoming fuzzy. Elisabetta led us up the staircase and down a long corridor lined with paintings, portraits mostly, stern-faced men and women who shared Dante's sharp features and penetrating gaze. His ancestors, watching our procession with painted disapproval. We stopped before a set of double doors, which Elisabetta opened with a small, old-fashioned key. "Your suite, signora," she announced, stepping aside. The room beyond was larger than my entire Boston apartment, with soaring ceilings and tall windows currently covered by heavy brocade drapes. A massive four-poster bed dominated one wall, draped in what looked like silk. A sitting area with elegant antique furniture occupied another corner, while a marble fireplace, already lit and crackling with warmth, filled the room with golden light. "The bathroom is through there," Elisabetta continued, gesturing to another door. "Your clothes have been unpacked." I froze. "My clothes?" "A suitable wardrobe has been provided," Dante said from behind me. "Your own things will be laundered, but you'll find you need more appropriate attire for your new position." My temper flared, momentarily cutting through the haze of exhaustion. "My position as what, exactly? Prisoner? Captive bride?" Elisabetta's eyes widened slightly, but she maintained her composure. Dante merely smiled. "As the future Signora Ricci," he said calmly, "my wife and partner. I never agreed to that," I reminded him sharply. His expression remained unperturbed. "You will, Elisabetta, leave us." The older woman bowed again and retreated, closing the doors behind her with a soft click that sounded uncomfortably final to my ears. Alone with Dante in this opulent cage, I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how disheveled I must look after the long flight. My jeans and wrinkled blouse were a stark contrast to the luxury surrounding me. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. "Why me?" The truth this time. Dante moved past me, approaching the fireplace with measured steps. The flames cast his profile in sharp relief, highlighting the aristocratic nose, the strong jaw, the intensity of his gaze as he stared into the fire. "6 months ago," he began, his voice low. "I was in Boston on business, a gallery opening. Emerson Fine Arts." My heart skipped a beat. "My gallery." He nodded without looking at me. "I saw you there, moving among the guests, speaking about the pieces with such passion. Such knowledge." He turned then, his dark eyes finding mine across the room. "Do you remember that night? A man purchased the Colesi sculpture. Paid in cash." I did remember. The sale had kept the gallery afloat for another month, a temporary reprieve from the financial troubles that would eventually force us to close. "That was you?" "It was." He moved toward me, each step deliberate. "I returned the following week and the week after. You never noticed me. You were too consumed with saving your failing business. But I noticed everything about you." A shiver ran through me as pieces clicked into place. "You've been stalking me." His expression hardened. "I've been protecting what's mine." "I'm not yours." The words burst from me, loud in the quiet room. "You can't just decide someone belongs to you and take them. No?" He was close now, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Then explain why, when that worthless excuse for a man put his hands on you. It was my men who ensured he wouldn't trouble you again. My blood ran cold. What did you do to Martin? Nothing he didn't deserve. Dante's voice had dropped to a near whisper. He's alive, if that's your concern. Though he may walk with a slight limp for the rest of his life. Horror and a forbidden flicker of satisfaction warred within me. Martin had been cruel, controlling, violent toward the end. But this calculated violence from a stranger was something else entirely. You had no right, I said weakly. I had every right. His hand rose to cut my cheek, and though I flinched, I didn't pull away. His touch was surprisingly gentle. No one harms what belongs to me, Sophia. No one. The possessiveness in his tone should have repelled me. Instead, it sent an unwelcome heat curling through my abdomen, a reaction I immediately tried to suppress. I want to go home, I whispered. You are home. His thumb traced my lower lip, sending electricity skittering across my skin. Tomorrow, you'll become my wife in name. Eventually, you'll accept it in your heart as well. I jerked away from his touch, anger giving me strength. You can force a ceremony, but you can't force feelings. I will never love you. Something dangerous and wounded flashed across his features before his expression smoothed once more. We'll see. He stepped back, creating space between us. Rest now. Lucia will bring your meal shortly. The bathroom has everything you need. If you require anything else, there's an intercom by the bed. He moved toward the door, and relief, premature I knew, began to wash over me. Before he left, however, he turned back, his hand on the doorknob. One more thing, Sophia. Don't bother trying to leave. The estate is guarded, the gates locked. There's no transportation for 20 miles, and my men patrol the grounds. For your own safety, stay within the villa until I introduce you properly to the security team. The thinly veiled threat was clear. I was trapped. Sleep well, Mia Cara, he said softly. Tomorrow begins our life together. The door closed behind him, and I heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the lock. Tears of frustration burned behind my eyes, but I refused to shed them. Crying wouldn't help me escape. I crossed to the nearest window and pulled back the heavy drapes. Beyond the glass lay darkness, the grounds of the estate barely visible in the moonlight. I could make out gardens, what looked like a maze of hedges, and in the distance, a high stone wall topped with what might have been security sensors. Beyond that, the black silhouettes of mountains against a star-scattered sky. I was in the middle of nowhere, locked in a stranger's mansion, about to be forced into a marriage I never agreed to. My situation seemed hopeless, but I refused to give up. I turned from the window and began a systematic exploration of my prison, searching for weaknesses, escape routes, anything I could use. The bathroom was as luxurious as the bedroom. Marble and gold fixtures, a sunken tub large enough for 3 people, and a shower encased in glass. Expensive toiletries lined the counter, all in my preferred brands. Another chill ran through me at this evidence of Dante's surveillance. The closet was worse. Racks of clothing in exactly my size. Dresses, blouses, skirts, all in styles I might have chosen myself if I had unlimited funds. Shoes lined one wall, handbags another. Lingerie occupied several drawers, pieces more revealing and sensual than anything I'd ever owned. I slammed the closet door shut and continued my search. 20 minutes later, I had to admit defeat. The windows were sealed and likely alarmed. The air vents were too small for even my slim frame. The door was solid oak, the lock unpickable with the tools at my disposal. Even the fireplace was gas-operated, its chimney too narrow for escape. A soft knock at the door interrupted my increasingly desperate thoughts. "Signora, your meal," called a young woman's voice. I didn't respond, hoping she might use a key to enter, a key I could perhaps steal. Instead, I heard a metallic sound, and a small panel at the bottom of the door slid open. A tray appeared in the opening before the panel slid shut again. My heart sank. Even this small opportunity was denied me. I approached the tray cautiously. Despite my hunger, I hesitated before the covered dishes. What if the food was drugged? But why would Dante bother with such subtlety now, when I was already his prisoner? Lifting the silver covers, I found a light meal of pasta, bread, and a small salad, along with a carafe of water and a glass of red wine. My stomach growled traitorously. I hadn't eaten since the meager airline meal hours ago. I ate standing up, using only the water and leaving the wine untouched. When I finished, I pushed the tray back through the panel, which opened immediately. Someone had been waiting outside. Exhaustion crashed over me in waves. The bed, with its silken covers and plump pillows, beckoned despite my determination to stay alert. I compromised by lying on the small sofa in the sitting area, pulling an Afghan over me. Just a few minutes of rest, I told myself. Just enough to clear my head and formulate a plan. But as soon as my eyes closed, consciousness slipped away, dragging me down into darkness where Dante's voice followed me, whispering words of possession and forever. Sunlight streaming through a gap in the curtains woke me, momentarily disorienting me as I blinked at unfamiliar surroundings. For one blessed second, I thought I was in a hotel, that yesterday had been a bizarre dream. Then reality crashed back. The luxurious room, the locked door, Dante Ricci and his impossible claim. "You're going to be my wife." My back ached from sleeping on the sofa and my mouth felt dry. I rose stiffly, pushing aside the Afghan that had kept me warm through the night. The ornate clock on the mantelpiece showed just past 8 in the morning. In a few hours, according to Dante, I would be forced into a wedding ceremony with a man I'd known for less than a day. Not if I could help it. I crossed to the bathroom, relieved myself, and splashed cold water on my face. The mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized. Pale, with shadows beneath her eyes, hair tangled from restless sleep. I looked haunted. Hunted. Another knock at the door made me freeze. "Signora?" A female voice, young, not Elisabetta from last night. "I've brought breakfast and fresh clothes for your bath." I remained silent, heart pounding. "Signora, I can hear you moving." "Signor Ricci instructed me to prepare you for today's events. Please open the door." "It's locked," I called back, voice raspy from sleep and fear. "I can't open it from this side." A pause, then the sound of a key turning. The door swung open to reveal a young woman, perhaps 20, with olive skin and dark hair pulled into a neat bun. She wore a simple black dress, a uniform of sorts, and carried a tray in one hand, garment bags draped over her other arm. "I am Lucia," she introduced herself, entering the room and setting the tray on a small table. "Signor Ricci's personal maid. I'll be assisting you today." I eyed the open door behind her. Freedom beckoned, but I knew I wouldn't get far if I ran now, disheveled and disoriented, with no idea of the layout of the villa or the grounds beyond. Better to gather information first. Learn the routine. Find the weaknesses. "I don't need assistance," I said, moving away as she approached with the garment bags. "And I won't be participating in any ceremony today." Lucia's expression remained carefully neutral as she laid the garments across the bed. "Signor Ricci suggested you might be reluctant." She unzipped one bag to reveal a cream-colored dress that, despite my situation, made my breath catch. The fabric looked impossibly soft, the design elegant and understated. "He asked me to tell you that cooperation today will be rewarded with freedoms tomorrow." "What kind of freedoms?" I asked, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. A longer leash for his new pet? A flicker of something, sympathy perhaps, crossed Lucia's features before her professional mask returned. Access to the grounds and libraries, permission to make telephone calls with supervision. I laughed harshly. How generous of my captor. "Signor Ricci is many things," Lucia said carefully. "But he is not cruel without purpose." The implication that he could be cruel with purpose sent a chill through me. "Is that supposed to comfort me?" Instead of answering, Lucia gestured to the breakfast tray. "You should eat. It will be a long day." My stomach growled traitorously. The tray held fresh pastries, fruit, yogurt, and coffee that smelled divine. I hadn't had real Italian coffee in years. Not since studying abroad in Florence during college. "Fine," I conceded, sitting at the small table. "But I want answers while I eat, real ones." Lucia hesitated, then gave a small nod. I will answer what I can. I took a bite of a flaky pastry, closing my eyes briefly at the buttery perfection. When I opened them, Lucia was watching me with something like approval. First question, I said, washing down the pastry with a sip of coffee. Who exactly is Dante Ricci? And don't just say he's your boss. Lucia's hands twisted together briefly before she clasped them at her waist. Signor Ricci is one of the most powerful men in northern Italy. His family has controlled this region for generations. Controlled how? I pressed. What business is he in? Many businesses, she replied carefully. Import, export, real estate, banking, art collection and restoration. I heard what she wasn't saying. He's Mafia, isn't he? Lucia's eyes widened, darting to the door as if afraid someone might overhear. We do not use such terms, signora. The Ricci family is respected, feared, and obeyed. That is all you need to know. The confirmation, even unspoken, made my blood run cold. I was in the clutches of not just any kidnapper, but a mafia boss. The kind of man who could make people disappear without a trace. I forced myself to take another bite, to appear calmer than I felt. Why me? Why does he want to marry me specifically? There must be plenty of willing women. Something like pity crossed Lucia's face. Too many willing women. Women who want his money, his power, his name. None who challenge him, who make him feel... She paused, searching for the right word. Alive. So, I'm supposed to be flattered that he kidnapped me because I'm not throwing myself at him? I shook my head in disbelief. This is insane. Perhaps, Lucia acknowledged. But it is happening nonetheless. I pushed the tray away. Appetite gone. Last question. What happens if I refuse to go through with this ceremony today? If I scream, or run, or fight? Lucia's expression grew somber. Signor Ricci always gets what he wants, signora. Always. The ceremony will proceed with or without your cooperation, but your life here will be determined by your choices today. The threat was clear. Comply or suffer the consequences. I stood, anger temporarily overwhelming fear. I want to see him, now, before anything else happens. Lucia hesitated, then nodded. I will inform him of your request. But first you must bathe and dress. Those are his conditions for any meeting. I wanted to refuse on principle, to remain dirty and disheveled as a small act of defiance. But pragmatism won out. If I was going to face Dante Ricci again, better to do so with clear thoughts and a semblance of dignity. Fine, I conceded. I'll bathe. But I choose what to wear. Lucia's lips twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. As you wish, signora. I'll have the bath prepared. The bathroom transformed into a steamy sanctuary, as Lucia filled the massive tub with scented water. Despite everything, I couldn't deny the appeal of sinking into its depths, washing away the grime of travel and fear. When Lucia left to give me privacy, I stripped quickly and submerged myself, letting the hot water ease my tense muscles. As I bathed, I tried to think rationally. Dante Ricci wanted me as his wife. Not dead, not harmed, at least not physically. That gave me time to plan, to observe, to find a way out. If I had to play along temporarily to ensure my survival, I would. But I would never truly submit. After washing my hair with shampoo that smelled of jasmine, I emerged feeling marginally better. Wrapped in a plush towel, I returned to the bedroom to find Lucia waiting with an array of clothing options laid across the bed. Signor Ricci suggests the blue dress for your meeting, she said, indicating a silk sheath in sapphire blue. He says it matches your eyes. The fact that he'd noticed my eye color and chosen clothing to complement it was both unsettling and oddly intimate. I deliberately turned away from the blue dress. I'll wear these, I declared, selecting dark jeans and a simple white blouse from among the options. Not the wedding dress, not the blue dress he'd selected, a small rebellion, but mine. Lucia's expression remained neutral, but I sensed her tension. As you wish, signora. While I dressed, Lucia attempted to style my hair, but I waved her away. I'll wear it down. She pressed her lips together but nodded. Signor Ricci will see you in the library in 15 minutes. I'll escort you when you're ready. I took my time finishing my preparations, applying minimal makeup from the extensive collection provided. When I couldn't delay any longer, I nodded to Lucia. I'm ready. She led me through a maze of corridors, each more opulent than the last. In daylight, the villa revealed itself as a treasure trove of art and antiquities. Renaissance paintings lined the walls, marble sculptures occupied niches, and antique furniture that belonged in museums furnished the rooms we passed. Under different circumstances, I would have been enthralled. My art history degree and years running a gallery had given me an appreciation for fine art that even fear couldn't entirely suppress. "That's a Caravaggio," I murmured, pausing before a dark, dramatic painting of a saint in ecstasy. "Signor Ricci will be pleased you recognized it," Lucia said. "His collection is his pride." We stopped before a set of double doors carved with intricate scenes. Hunting parties and mythological figures intertwined in wooden relief. "The library," Lucia announced, knocking softly before opening the door. The room beyond made me forget my fear momentarily. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined every wall, accessed by rolling ladders on brass rails. A massive fireplace dominated one end, while tall windows overlooking the gardens occupied the other. The ceiling soared 2 stories above, painted with frescoes depicting scenes from classical literature. In the center of this literary paradise stood Dante Ricci. He wore a crisp white shirt, open at the collar, and tailored charcoal trousers. His dark hair was slightly damp, as if he'd recently showered. Without his suit jacket, he appeared both more approachable and more dangerous, the predator at ease in his territory. "Sophia?" he greeted me, his accent caressing my name. His eyes flickered over my chosen outfit, a slight frown crossing his features before his expression smoothed once more. "You slept well, I trust?" "On a sofa, locked in a strange room after being kidnapped?" I retorted. "Not particularly." He gestured to a seating area near the windows, 2 leather armchairs facing each other across a low table. "Please, sit. Lucia, leave us." The maid retreated, closing the doors behind her with a soft click. I remained standing, arms crossed. "You requested this meeting," Dante reminded me, his tone mild. "I have a very busy day ahead, preparing for our ceremony." "There won't be a ceremony," I said flatly. "I won't marry you." He sighed, as if dealing with a stubborn child. "Sit down, Sophia." "No." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "When I give an order in my house, it is obeyed. I'm not one of your employees or your subordinates," I countered. "You can't order me to do anything." In 2 swift strides, he closed the distance between us. I stumbled back, but he caught my arm in a grip that wasn't painful but brooked no resistance. "Let me be very clear," he said softly, dangerously. "You have 2 paths before you. In one, you cooperate, become my wife willingly, and enjoy a life of comfort, respect, and eventually, freedom within the boundaries I set. In the other," his grip tightened slightly, "you resist, cause problems, and find your world narrowed to a single room until you reconsider." Fear clawed at my throat, but I refused to show it. "Why the charade of marriage? If you just want a prisoner, you already have one." His expression softened slightly, his grip loosening. "I don't want a prisoner, Sophia. I want a partner, a companion." His free hand rose to my cheek, his thumb tracing my jawline. "Someone who challenges me, intrigues me. Someone worthy of standing beside me." Despite myself, I felt a treacherous warmth at his touch, at the intensity in his gaze. I jerked away, hating my body's reaction to this dangerous man. "I don't want to stand beside you," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I want to go home. This is your home now." He gestured around us. "All of this, the art, the books, the beauty, it can be yours to enjoy. You were wasted in that tiny gallery, struggling to pay rent, dating men who didn't value your intelligence, your passion for art." The accuracy of his assessment stung. "You've been watching me for months. That's not romantic. It's criminal." A smile curved his lips. "The line between romance and criminality is often thin, Mia cara. History's greatest love stories frequently began with abduction. Helen of Troy, Persephone and Hades. Those are myths," I scoffed. "And they didn't end well for the women. On the contrary, they became queens." His hand returned to my face, and this time I couldn't bring myself to pull away. "As you will." His proximity was overwhelming, his cologne teasing my senses. Up close, I could see the tiny flecks of amber in his dark eyes, the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, despite his recent shave. "I'll never love you," I whispered. "No matter what you do." Something vulnerable flashed across his features before it was masked once more by cool confidence. "We'll see." He stepped back, creating distance between us. "The ceremony is at 4 this afternoon. Lucia will help you prepare. If you cooperate, your first act as my wife will be to join me for dinner with an important business associate. If you do not," he shrugged elegantly, "you'll dine alone in your room, and we'll try again tomorrow and the next day." And however long it takes, the implication was clear. Resistance was futile. The ceremony would happen, with or without my willing participation. "May I at least have access to the grounds today?" I asked, hating the note of pleading in my voice, but desperate for some semblance of freedom. "Before I'm expected to make this decision?" Dante studied me, clearly weighing the risk of escape against the potential benefit of earning my cooperation. "Antonio will accompany you," he finally said. 1 hour, no more. The gardens only, not beyond the inner walls. It wasn't freedom, but it was something. A chance to assess the estate, to breathe fresh air, to think clearly away from the confines of the villa. "Thank you," I said, the words bitter on my tongue. Thanking my captor for the privilege of a supervised walk felt like surrender, but I swallowed my pride. 1 hour. Dante repeated. "Then you prepare for our future together." He moved toward the library doors, pausing with his hand on the knob. "Oh, and Sophia, that Caravaggio you admired in the hall? It's a wedding gift, the first of many." The door closed behind him, leaving me alone among thousands of books and not a single true escape. Antonio turned out to be the broad-shouldered man from the plane, Dante's head of security, as he curtly introduced himself when he collected me from the library. He didn't speak again as he escorted me through the villa's lower level and out through a set of French doors that opened onto a stone terrace. The gardens spread before me, a masterpiece of Italian landscape design. Formal hedges created geometric patterns, punctuated by classical statuary and burbling fountains. Beyond the structured gardens, I glimpsed wilder grounds, an olive grove, what looked like a vineyard on a distant slope, and the dark green smudge of woodland at the property's edge. "How far does the estate extend?" I asked, breaking the silence as we descended the terrace steps. Antonio's face remained impassive. "Several thousand acres, and the nearest town." His dark eyes slid to me, assessing. "Far enough that walking would be unwise, Signora." I didn't miss his meaning. Even if I managed to escape the villa and its grounds, I'd be stranded in the Italian countryside, miles from help. Still, I filed the information away. Better to know the full scope of my prison. "You work for Dante," I said, trying a different approach as we strolled along a gravel path between rows of cypress trees. "How long?" 10 years. His answer was clipped, but at least he'd responded. "And what exactly does he do that requires such security?" I pressed, watching his expression for any reaction. "I'm about to become his wife, apparently. Shouldn't I know what business I'm marrying into?" Antonio's jaw tightened. "Signor Ricci has many business interests." "It's not my place to discuss them." "Is he dangerous?" I asked bluntly. That earned me a sharp look. "Everyone is dangerous with the right motivation, Signora. That's not an answer." Antonio stopped, turning to face me fully for the first time. His expression remained neutral, but I sensed a shift in his demeanor. "Signor Ricci is a powerful man who protects what belongs to him. Sometimes that requires measures others might find extreme." A chill ran through me despite the warm morning sun. "And now he thinks I belong to him." "You do." The certainty in Antonio's voice was unsettling. "The sooner you accept that reality, the easier your life will become." I looked away, unwilling to let him see how his words affected me. "I'd like to continue walking. I only have an hour." We resumed our circuit of the gardens in silence. I used the time to study the layout of the grounds, noting the positions of security cameras disguised among the foliage, the patrol patterns of guards I glimpsed at the perimeter, and what appeared to be a helicopter pad on a distant section of lawn. The villa itself was even more imposing in daylight, a sprawling 3-story structure of honey-colored stone, with wings extending in several directions. From this vantage, I could see that my bedroom was located in the east wing, second floor, with a balcony overlooking a rose garden currently bursting with crimson blooms. As we approached a marble fountain depicting Neptune and his court, I noticed a sleek black car pull up to the villa's main entrance. 2 men emerged, one clearly a chauffeur, the other an older gentleman in an expensive suit, carrying a leather portfolio. "Who's that?" I asked Antonio, nodding toward the new arrival. "Judge Bartelli," he replied after a moment's hesitation. "Here to officiate the ceremony." My stomach twisted with renewed anxiety. "Is that legal? A forced marriage?" Antonio's expression didn't change. "The judge sees only what Signor Ricci wishes him to see. As far as he's concerned, you are a willing bride who has been engaged to his friend for 6 months." "And if I tell him otherwise?" His gaze was almost pitying. "Then your life becomes much more complicated, Signora. The judge is loyal to the Ricci family, has been for decades. Your protests would change nothing except Signor Ricci's patience with you." The implication was clear. Resistance would only make my situation worse. I swallowed hard, trying to quell the panic rising in my chest. "Time to return to the villa," Antonio announced, checking his watch. "Lucia will be waiting to prepare you." As we walked back, I noticed activity around the grounds. Staff moving with purpose, carrying flowers, linens, what looked like catering equipment. Despite the intimate nature of the ceremony, just the judge, Dante, and his unwilling bride, it seemed he was planning a celebration. Back in my room, my prison, I found Lucia waiting with a team of women. A stylist for my hair, another for makeup, a third who seemed to be a seamstress, holding what could only be the wedding dress. "I won't wear that," I declared immediately, backing away from the cream-colored gown. Lucia sighed. "Signora, please. It will be easier for everyone if you cooperate." "Easier for everyone except me," I countered bitterly. A new voice interrupted from the doorway. "Leave us!" Dante stood there, impeccable in a tailored black suit, watching me with those intense, dark eyes. The women scattered like startled birds, Lucia the last to leave, closing the door behind her with a significant look I couldn't interpret. Alone with him again, I felt my heart rate accelerate. "Come to make sure your bride doesn't run away?" He entered the room fully, moving with that predator's grace. "I came to give you this." He withdrew a small velvet box from his pocket. I didn't move to take it. "What is it?" "See for yourself." He placed it on the table between us. Curiosity warred with defiance. Finally, I reached for the box, opening it carefully, as if it might contain something dangerous. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet, its links interspersed with small sapphires that matched my eyes. It wasn't ostentatious or flashy, actually quite beautiful in its simplicity, which somehow made it more unsettling. He'd chosen something I might have selected for myself. "It belonged to my grandmother," Dante said quietly. "She wore it on her wedding day, as did my mother on hers." The sentiment behind the gesture caught me off guard. "I can't accept this. It's not a request, Sophia." His tone remained gentle, but the steel beneath was unmistakable. "You will wear it today." I closed the box with a snap. Why go through this charade? Why a ceremony, a dress, family heirlooms? Why not just keep me locked up if what you want is possession? Something shifted in his expression. A softening around the eyes, a tension in his jaw, because a man in my position needs a wife, not a prisoner. I need someone who can stand beside me at business dinners, charity galas, family events. Someone intelligent, cultured, beautiful. His gaze traveled over my face with unsettling intensity. "Someone like you." "A trophy," I translated bitterly. "A partner," he corrected. "In time." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "You think Stockholm Syndrome will eventually turn me into a willing accomplice? That I'll fall in love with my kidnapper?" Instead of anger, my words seemed to amuse him. "Love is not required, though I believe it will come. For now, I need only your cooperation." He glanced at his watch. "You have 2 hours before the ceremony. I suggest you use them wisely." He moved to leave, but I called after him, a desperate idea forming. "Wait, if I do this, If I go through with your ceremony without fighting or screaming or telling the judge the truth, what do I get in return?" Dante turned back, one eyebrow raised in interest. "What do you want?" "Freedom to move around the villa and grounds without guards, access to a phone to call my friend Megan so she doesn't worry, and—" I took a deep breath. No physical intimacy without my consent. His expression darkened at the last request. "You think I would force myself on you?" "I don't know what you're capable of," I answered honestly. "You've already kidnapped me and are forcing me into marriage. Where do your boundaries lie?" For a moment, he looked genuinely offended. Then his expression cleared. "Very well. Agree to become my wife today, convincingly, with no resistance. And I will grant your requests, with conditions. You may move freely within the inner walls of the estate. You may call your friend, but I will be present, and you will tell her only that you've met someone and decided to stay in Italy for a while. And as for the third," his gaze grew heated, "I will not touch you until you ask me to." The confidence in his voice when he made that last statement sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. "I'll never ask." A slow smile spread across his face. "We'll see." After he left, I sat motionless, staring at the velvet box. The deal I'd just made felt like surrender, but it was really strategy. Freedom to move around meant opportunities to learn the villa's layout, to observe guard rotations, to plan a real escape. A phone call to Megan, even a restricted one, would at least let her know I was alive, give her a hint of where to look if I disappeared. And the third condition, I pushed that thought away. I would never want Dante Ricci to touch me. Never. When Lucia and her team returned, I didn't resist as they prepared me for the ceremony. I allowed them to style my hair in soft waves, to apply makeup that enhanced without overwhelming, to help me into the cream-colored dress that fit as if it had been made for me, which, I realized, it probably had been. The woman I saw in the mirror looked like a bride, radiant, beautiful, serene. Only my eyes betrayed the truth, holding a wariness, a calculation that no amount of makeup could disguise. "The bracelet, Signora," Lucia reminded me, holding out the velvet box. I allowed her to fasten it around my wrist, the silver cool against my skin, the sapphires catching the light. "How do you know my size?" I asked. "For the dress, the shoes, everything." Lucia's expression remained carefully neutral. "Signor Ricci is very thorough in his preparations." Of course he was. The man who had watched me for months, who had learned my favorite brands of toiletries and the color of my eyes, would certainly know my measurements. At precisely 4 o'clock, Antonio arrived to escort me downstairs. The ceremony, he informed me, would take place in the villa's private chapel, a detail that made me raise my eyebrows. "Dante is religious?" I asked as we descended the grand staircase. Antonio's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. "Traditional, Signora. The Ricci family has maintained certain appearances for generations." The chapel proved to be a small but exquisite space tucked into the west wing of the villa. Stained glass windows cast jewel-toned light across marble floors and carved wooden pews. Flowers, white roses and lilies, adorned the altar where Judge Bartelli waited, beside him a strikingly handsome man in black. Dante turned as I entered, and for a moment, his composure slipped. Something raw and hungry crossed his face as he took in my appearance, something that made my pulse quicken despite everything. Then his mask returned, and he extended his hand to me. "Remember the plan," I told myself. "Cooperate now, escape later." I placed my hand in his, allowing him to draw me to his side before the judge. Up close, I could see the fine details of his suit, smell the subtle cologne that had become disturbingly familiar. His hand was warm around mine, his grip firm, but not painful. "You look beautiful," he murmured for my ears alone, "like you were made to stand beside me." I said nothing, focusing instead on maintaining my facade of willing participation. The ceremony itself passed in a blur. Judge Bartelli spoke in Italian, then English, words about commitment and honor and fidelity that seemed a mockery under the circumstances. I repeated vows when prompted, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. Dante's responses came in that rich accent, confident and possessive. When he slid a platinum band onto my finger, a simple, elegant ring that matched his own, His fingers lingered against my skin, tracing small circles that sent unwelcome heat up my arm. "You may kiss your bride," the judge announced with a smile. I tensed, but Dante was already leaning in, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. His eyes held a warning. "Remember our deal," before his lips touched mine. I expected the kiss to be brief. Perfunctory, it was neither. His mouth moved against mine with surprising gentleness, coaxing rather than demanding. The hand at my cheek slid into my hair, cradling my head with unexpected tenderness. And despite all my resolutions, all my hatred for what he'd done, I felt myself responding, my lips softening under his, my body swaying infinitesimally toward his solid warmth. When he finally pulled back, I was breathless, confused, and furious at my own reaction. Dante's eyes held triumph, and something darker, more primitive, as he gazed down at me. "My wife," he murmured, the possessiveness in those two words unmistakable. God help me, but in that moment, with his taste still on my lips and his touch still warming my skin, I almost believed him. A small reception followed in the villa's grand salon, small only in terms of guests, for the elegance and extravagance of the affair befitted royalty, not a forced union between a mafia boss and his unwilling bride. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over tables laden with delicacies. Champagne flowed freely, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. The only attendees were Judge Bartelli, Antonio, Elisabetta, and a handful of what I assumed were Dante's closest associates, men with expensive suits and watchful eyes, accompanied by wives who studied me with undisguised curiosity. They greeted me as Signora Ricci, offering congratulations in Italian and English, their expressions revealing nothing about whether they knew the true nature of this marriage. Dante kept me close, his hand at the small of my back, a constant presence as we moved among the guests. To anyone watching, we must have appeared the picture of newlywed bliss. The handsome, powerful man and his beautiful bride, her cheeks flushed, her eyes bright. Only I knew the flush came from anger, the brightness from unshed tears. "Smile, mia cara," Dante murmured against my ear as we accepted another round of congratulations. "You're breaking our agreement." I fixed a smile on my face, wondering if it looked as false as it felt. "I'm here, aren't I? I said the vows. I didn't tell the judge I was kidnapped. What more do you want?" His hand slid from my back to my waist, drawing me closer to his side. "Conviction," he answered, his breath warm against my skin. "If we're to convince the world of our love story, you must play your part more convincingly." "I never agreed to pretend to be in love with you," I hissed through my smile, only to go through with the ceremony without resistance. His dark eyes held mine, something dangerous lurking in their depths. "Then consider it a necessary addition to our arrangement if you wish to maintain your privileges." Before I could respond, we were approached by an older man with silver hair and a commanding presence. Beside him stood a woman perhaps 10 years his junior, elegant in midnight blue, diamonds glittering at her throat. "Ah, Vincenzo," Dante greeted him warmly, shaking his hand before kissing the woman's cheeks. "Sophia, may I present Vincenzo Moretti and his wife, Isabella. Vincenzo is my most trusted business associate and oldest friend. His father and mine built our enterprises together." I extended my hand, drawing on years of gallery openings and art events to summon my most professional smile. "A pleasure to meet you." Vincenzo kissed my hand, his eyes shrewd as they assessed me. "The pleasure is ours, Cara. When Dante told us he had found a bride in America, we were surprised. He has always been so particular." His gaze slid to Dante, but now I see he has chosen well. Beauty and grace in one package. "And intelligence," Dante added, his arm tightening around my waist. "Sophia has a master's degree in art history. She ran her own gallery in Boston." I blinked in surprise at his knowledge of my educational background, yet another piece of evidence of how thoroughly he had stalked me before making his move. "How fascinating," Isabella said, her accent thicker than her husband's. "Perhaps you might help us authenticate a painting we've recently acquired. Vincenzo believes it's a genuine Titian, but I have my doubts." "I'd be happy to," I replied automatically, my professional interest momentarily overriding my current predicament. "Wonderful," Vincenzo beamed. "You must both come to dinner next week. We'll open the 82 Brunello to celebrate your marriage. As they moved away to speak with other guests, I felt a momentary disorientation. I was standing in a villa in Italy, wearing a wedding dress, discussing future dinner plans and art authentication as if I weren't essentially a prisoner. The surreality of it made me lightheaded. "You're pale," Dante observed, guiding me toward a quiet alcove away from the guests. "Sit. Drink this." He pressed a glass of water into my hand. I sank onto a velvet settee, grateful for the moment of respite. "Why did you tell them about my background, my education?" He sat beside me, closer than necessary, his thigh pressing against mine through the layers of my dress. "Because it's the truth. Because I'm proud of what you've accomplished." His expression grew contemplative. "Your gallery was failing not for lack of your talent or knowledge, but because of economic forces beyond your control. Under my protection, you could curate again, build something lasting. The offer was tempting, dangerously so. My gallery had been my dream, my passion, before financial reality had crushed it. To have unlimited resources, connections to the art world, the freedom to create something truly special. I pushed the thought away. I don't want anything from you except my freedom." His smile held no humor, "Yet you've already accepted so much. The dress, the ceremony, the role of my wife." "Under duress," I reminded him sharply. "Perhaps at first," he acknowledged. "But that kiss, Sophia," his voice dropped lower, intimate. "That wasn't duress. That was desire." Heat flooded my cheeks as I remembered how I'd responded to him, how for a brief, traitorous moment I'd forgotten everything except the feel of his lips on mine. That was instinct. Meaningless. "Liar," he murmured, but there was no anger in the word, only a certainty that infuriated me. Before I could retort, Antonio approached, his expression serious. "Signor Ricci, a moment?" Dante's demeanor shifted instantly, the attentive husband replaced by the commanding boss. "Excuse me, mia cara, business that cannot wait, even today." He rose, straightening his jacket. "Don't stray far." Left alone for the first time since the ceremony, I took the opportunity to assess the room more carefully, noting exits, the positions of security personnel, the layout of the adjacent spaces visible through arched doorways. If I was to escape, I needed to understand this labyrinth of a house. "He won't let you go, you know," I startled at the voice, turning to find Isabella Moretti standing beside the settee, her expression unreadable. "Excuse me?" I managed, my heart rate accelerating. She sat gracefully in the spot Dante had vacated. "I recognize the look in your eyes. Calculation, planning." She sipped her champagne delicately. "I had the same look once, many years ago." Understanding dawned slowly. "You weren't a willing bride either." A slight lift of her shoulders. Not quite a shrug. Too elegant for that. "Vincenzo decided I would be his wife after seeing me at the opera in Milan. 3 days later, I was brought to his estate." Her gaze drifted to where her husband stood talking with Dante, both men's expressions serious. "I tried to escape 4 times in the first month. My breath caught. What happened? The first time he caught me himself. The second, his guards. The third..." Her expression clouded momentarily. "The third attempt resulted in consequences I would not wish to revisit." "And the fourth?" I prompted when she fell silent. Isabella's smile was sad, knowing. "The fourth time, I made it all the way to Florence. I was on a train to Rome when he found me." She twisted the diamond band on her finger. "That was 26 years ago." The defeat in her voice made my stomach clench. "So you just accepted it? Gave up?" "I adapted," she corrected, her gaze direct now. "These men, they are from a different world, with different rules. Fighting is futile, but adaptation," she leaned closer, "adaptation can bring its own kind of power." "I don't want power," I said quietly. "I want freedom." "Freedom is relative, Kara. Even in your old life, were you truly free? Free from financial worries, free from the threat of men like your ex-boyfriend, free to pursue your passions without constraint." She gestured subtly around the room. "I have traveled the world. I own 3 galleries in Milan, Florence, and Rome. My children attended the finest schools in Europe. Vincenzo denies me nothing, except the choice to leave, I pointed out. Her smile turned enigmatic. After a time, I no longer wished to leave. Stockholm Syndrome, I thought but didn't say. I would never surrender my will so completely. Never mistake captivity for choice. Just some things to consider, Isabella said, rising as Dante returned. I look forward to our dinner next week. Perhaps we can discuss art in a more relaxed setting. Dante watched her rejoin her husband, his expression thoughtful. What did Isabella have to say? Just offering congratulations. I lied, unwilling to share the true nature of our conversation. Something told me Dante wouldn't appreciate another man's wife offering insight into the reality of forced marriages in their world. He didn't appear to believe me, but he didn't press the issue. Our guests will be departing soon, then we have a more private celebration. Alarm must have shown on my face, for he immediately added, Nothing you haven't agreed to. Dinner, just the two of us. Then you may retire to your room, alone, as per our arrangement. The reminder of our deal calmed my racing heart somewhat. At least tonight, I wouldn't have to fight off unwanted advances. But tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days stretching before me in this gilded cage, how long could I maintain my resistance? Isabella's words echoed in my mind. Adaptation can bring its own kind of power. As the reception wound down and the guests departed, I found myself standing beside Dante on the villa's front steps, accepting final congratulations, playing the role of the happy bride. When the last car disappeared down the long driveway, he turned to me, something unreadable in his expression. You performed admirably, he said, guiding me back inside. Perhaps there's an actress hidden beneath the art historian. Don't confuse survival with acceptance, I replied, shrugging off his hand as we re-entered the grand salon, now empty of guests. I did what was necessary to secure the freedoms we agreed upon. He studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes revealing nothing. Very well. Let's discuss those freedoms over dinner. The terrace has been prepared for us. The terrace overlooked the gardens, now bathed in the golden light of sunset. A single table had been set with fine china, crystal, and silver, candles waiting to be lit as darkness fell. The setting was undeniably romantic, which made it all the more unsettling given the circumstances. As we took our seats, a waiter appeared to pour wine and serve the first course, a delicate seafood appetizer that under normal circumstances I would have appreciated. Now, however, food seemed like an afterthought, my mind too preoccupied with my imprisonment and the strange conversation with Isabella. You're quiet, Dante observed after several minutes of silence. I set down my fork, having barely touched my food. What did you expect? Scintillating honeymoon conversation? A flash of irritation crossed his features, quickly controlled. I expected basic civility. We will be sharing our lives indefinitely, Sophia. Perpetual hostility serves neither of us. Then perhaps you shouldn't have kidnapped me, I retorted. Hostility seems a reasonable response to being forced to marry a stranger. He sipped his wine, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. In time, I won't be a stranger. You'll know me better than anyone. I know enough already, I said. You're a man who takes what he wants without regard for others' choices, who believes power gives you the right to control people's lives. And you, he countered, are a woman who sacrificed her own happiness to care for a mother who never appreciated it, who wasted years with a man who undermined her confidence and stole from her, who buried her true talents to survive in a world that didn't value them. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. I've watched you, Sophia. I've seen your strength, your resilience, your brilliance. I've also seen how the world has failed you at every turn. His words struck uncomfortably close to truths I rarely acknowledged. My mother's emotional manipulation before her death, Martin's gradual erosion of my self-worth, the financial struggles that had forced me to compromise my artistic vision for commercial viability. That doesn't give you the right to decide my future, I said. But my voice had lost some of its edge. Perhaps not, he conceded, surprising me. But I saw a woman drowning and offered a lifeline. By dragging me into deeper waters, I pointed out. Your world is more dangerous than anything I faced in Boston. A smile touched his lips. But in my world, you have protection. My protection. His expression grew serious. "No one will ever harm you again, Sophia. No one will take advantage of your kindness or steal what belongs to you. Your talents will be recognized, your passions encouraged." Is that truly such a terrible fate? Put like that, it sounded almost reasonable, which made it all the more dangerous. I couldn't allow myself to be seduced by the comfort and security he offered, not when the price was my freedom. "You promised me certain freedoms," I said, deliberately changing the subject. "When do they begin?" Dante sat back, accepting the shift in conversation. "Tomorrow. You may move freely within the villa and inner gardens. Antonio will show you the boundaries. You may call your friend Megan from my office after breakfast. I'll be present, as agreed." "And my things?" I asked. "My own clothes, my phone, my personal items from the suitcase I had on the plane?" "Your clothes have been laundered and placed in your closet alongside the new items," he replied. "Your phone has been temporarily confiscated for security purposes. Your personal items, books, toiletries, the photograph of your mother, are in your suite." The fact that he knew about the photograph, tucked into a side pocket of my suitcase, not visible unless someone had thoroughly searched my belongings, was yet another reminder of how completely my privacy had been invaded. "Thank you," I said stiffly, the words bitter on my tongue. Thanking my captor for returning my own possessions felt like the ultimate surrender. As dinner progressed through several exquisite courses, a strange calm settled over me. Not acceptance, not yet, but a recognition that survival in this new reality would require strategy, patience, and adaptability. Isabella had survived 26 years in a similar situation. I would need her resilience if I were to endure this gilded prison long enough to find a way out. Or, a traitorous voice whispered in the back of my mind, long enough to determine if there might be advantages to staying. I pushed the thought away immediately. Stockholm Syndrome, I reminded myself again, the captive identifying with the captor. I wouldn't fall into that trap. "Would you like to see the rest of the estate tomorrow?" Dante asked as dessert was served, a delicate lemon sorbet that tasted of summer. The olive groves are particularly beautiful this time of year. I considered refusing on principle, but knowledge of my surroundings could only help my eventual escape. "Yes," I said after a moment. "I'd like that." Something like genuine pleasure crossed his face, the first expression I'd seen from him that didn't seem calculated. "Good. We'll ride out after breakfast." "Ride?" I echoed. "Horses," he clarified. "The estate is too large to explore on foot." "Do you ride?" I nodded slowly. "I took lessons in college. It's been a while, though. We have several gentle mares suitable for a returning rider," he assured me. "Though I suspect you'll prefer something with more spirit once you've regained your confidence." The presumption that I would be here long enough to progress from a gentle mare to a spirited mount made my stomach clench, yet I couldn't deny a flicker of interest at the prospect of riding through the Italian countryside, feeling the sun on my face, the wind in my hair, a taste of freedom, however illusory. As the sun disappeared beyond the distant mountains, and stars began to pepper the darkening sky, Dante rose and extended his hand to me. "It's been a long day. I'll escort you to your suite." I stood without taking his offered hand. "You're returning me to the same locked room?" "No locks tonight," he said, surprising me. "You've honored our agreement. I'll honor mine." We walked in silence through the villa, climbing the grand staircase side by side. The distance between us remained carefully measured. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the subtle cologne that had become distressingly familiar in such a short time. At the door to my suite, our suite, I supposed, though he'd promised separate sleeping arrangements for now, he paused, turning to face me. "Today you became my wife in name," he said quietly. "I know it wasn't by choice, but I promise you this, Sophia, I will earn your trust, your respect, perhaps even, one day, your affection." Despite everything, despite my hatred for what he'd done, I found myself momentarily disarmed by the sincerity in his voice. "Good night, Dante," I said, unable to think of any other response. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to my knuckles. The gesture was oddly formal, restrained, at odds with the possessiveness he'd displayed throughout the day. "Sleep well, mia cara," he murmured. "Tomorrow begins our life together in earnest." I entered the suite alone, hearing the door close behind me, but no sound of a key turning in the lock. A small victory, but significant. My first step toward something resembling freedom in this strange new world. The wedding dress rustled as I moved through the dimly lit bedroom toward the bathroom, eager to wash away the day's events. As I passed a full-length mirror, I caught sight of my reflection, still in bridal white, Dante's bracelet glinting on my wrist, his ring on my finger. Sofia Ricci stared back at me, a stranger with my face. I turned away, refusing to acknowledge that woman. I was still Sophia Lawson inside, regardless of what documents now said, what vows had been forced from my lips. My identity remained my own, my will unbroken. As I prepared for bed, I replayed the day's events, analyzing each interaction, each piece of information gathered, the layout of the villa, the security patterns, Isabella's strange advice, Dante's unexpected promise of no locks. Tomorrow, I would begin exploring my prison properly, mapping escape routes, identifying weaknesses in the security. I would call Megan, find some way to signal my true situation without alerting Dante. I would learn the rhythms of this household, the habits of its master, and if, in the meantime, I had to play the role of willing wife to maintain my limited freedoms, well, that was merely strategy, not surrender. I slipped between silk sheets, the bed more comfortable than any I'd ever known. Outside my window, crickets chirped in the Italian night, a gentle breeze stirring the curtains. In this moment of quiet, of solitude, I could almost believe myself on an exotic vacation rather than living a nightmare. Almost, but not quite. As exhaustion finally claimed me, drawing me down into darkness, one thought surfaced from the chaos of my mind. I had survived day one as Dante Ricci's bride. Whatever came next, escape or adaptation, I would face it with the same strength, the same determination. This was not the end of my story, merely an unexpected twist in its